It's time, oh man, it's time. We're finally getting to another great feat, and it's going to be Madara dropping some meteors and then blowing everything away with his Susanoo. I wanted to devote a single video to just these two feats, maybe a few more if this doesn't drag on too long. So here we are, and hey, let's get started. So out the gate, alright, we have the meteors. These things are massive. And let me tell you now, it's an extreme pain in the ass to properly find their volume. Finding something that actually scales to their size or a shot that shows the entire thing just doesn't really exist. There's always something missing or getting in the way. But I believe I found what leads to really high levels of accuracy, just not like perfect. Let me lay out exactly what went behind the scenes, and so you get a clear picture, alright? So we had option 1 for finding sizes, because this is very important. And that is option 1, try and scale the meteor sizes to the mini rock pillars. Problem, there are no shots with good angles nor full shots of the feet, where we see the whole thing as a whole, to allow proper size comparisons. This scan is the best picture you can try with, but the other person trying to scale had to go with something like this picture to fill in the rest. Because that's what you would have to do even if you took this, route using this picture here. That's just not going to cut it for me. That's not going to be a properly good angled thing. You're not getting the full scope, you're not getting a proper angle, and you're having to cut from one and edit it into another. Not happening. So yeah, you can see where the bottom of the meteor from the different scan is. No. So if the inconsistent sized rock pillars with no good shots aren't going to cut it, what about option 2? All right, option 2 is try to scale the meteor sizes to the final Susanoo. Problem. The only angle we have to work with is the blatantly off angle top down one. The final Susanoo is additionally something that's kind of inconsistent in its size throughout the series. So if I was to try and use other scans, it's not going to work as well. Now, luckily, this is a scan that's going to matter to the meteors the most, as this is the size of everything happening in this moment. But lastly, the size differential between Madara and Susanoo for pixel scaling is worse than other comparative options. That matters because pixel scaling is significantly less worthwhile or maybe downright a bad option to even take for accuracy when the size differential between the two things that you're trying to scale in pixels is so large. That said, we could go for a decent lowball, and if we do that, then the method results in a Susanoo height at less than half the height of option 3. So, okay, that's not going to be nearly as high as what other options could get us, but is that an issue? Well, since this channel is about being as accurate as possible, and low balls are good, well, maybe we should consider what option 3 is. So what is option 3? Alright, we're trying to find the size of these meteors. Option 3 is where we try and scale the meteor size to the Enoki cube, roots, and flowers. Basically, the rest of the background that we have at our disposal. Problem. Pixel scaling isn't the best at these size discrepancies. Same with option 2. And it's true for option 1. So this is an actual problem with option 3, is that the size discrepancies between things kind of gets a little ridiculous for pixel scaling. But this is actually true for all of them, and this is the only drawback to using option 3. I additionally can't think of any other means of scaling the size without pixel scaling in this instance, as there's just no baseline meteor size for real life by which this falls under. So while I'll be using pixel scaling, I just don't see another way, I'll additionally be making sure to lowball throughout to make sure what you get is at minimum true, and could be higher, sure, but won't be anything drastically higher. That's what I can give you with option 3. Furthermore, literally every panel shows the roots are consistent for size in relation to each other as well as to the characters. That's very important. It's this scan here that we see Enoki not just near but right against a root, which is amazing as the depth would be matching then, his depth to the roots. But then with these scans here on top of that, we now have multiple scans, each supporting roughly the same size comparisons throughout. So if we go this option, we now have consistency for sizes to each other and the consistency in the root sizes to the characters as you could see them. Lastly, we can see that the cube shape made by Onoki is not only right next to the meteors, very important, but even imprints the cube's destruction on the meteors it was so close to. And on top of that, it's clearly scalable in size to the same consistently shown roots. And all this is to say, this is why I focus so much on accuracy and consistency. Remember, scaling Madara to the Susanoo results in a height less than half that of scaling the size to the hyper-consistent roots. No amount of crazy wing pixel scaling would make up for that additional 7,000 centimeter difference in height. That was going to be the difference between option 2 and option 3. However, this is again why I always talk consistency. Madara to the Susanoo is not consistent. The tree roots are consistent, and is a big reason why I will be using option 3 over option 2 here, despite lowballing being something to strive for. So, to continue on from here, I do need to point out that I don't like the idea of comparing the sizes of Meteor 1 to Meteor 2, as you can see in this scan here, when finding the size in the first place requires all the scans that aren't this scan, which also come in the form of post-destruction, where the meteors don't even look the same anymore. There's no reason the second meteor should be, such an ellipsoid if using this scan, but it's clearly not even close to as spherical as represented here. Now, the sucky part in this is that the first meteor is clearly larger by a slight margin, but a slight margin adds up at these sizes. The reason all this matters is because we have a direct feat. Some like to look at this feat for potential energy or kinetic energy, but the direct feat is second meteor explosively fragmented the first meteor. We can see the level of destruction. We don't need to do potential or kinetic energy. We can literally see the amount of destruction and the type and everything. So that's a direct, easy to calc on-panel feat. But if I don't know the exact size of Meteor 1, how can I come up with a fair calc? Well, how about this then? What if I treat Meteor 1 as the same size value as Meteor 2? I get it, that's not fair. It's slightly larger. But what if I throw in, completely ignoring, that Meteor 1 at the time of the feat, its weight was drastically less? And how much less? Onoki was aiming to turn this into a balloon, essentially, alright? He was in the midst of turning it light enough to nearly float. It's literally no wonder why the second meteor didn't cause both to completely shatter. No, if the first meteor had been changed in this way, the destruction 100% makes sense. So back to the feat. I treat Meteor 1 size as the same value as Meteor 2. In exchange, I don't treat the destruction shown as being thousands of times less impressive in shattering rock-based cotton candy due to, its weight and density that it would have been having at that time. Not that, again, the first meteor is even that much larger. So, is that fair? Cool. In that case, let's move on. We have this many cubic centimeters of rock being explosively fragmented. Explosive fragmentation is at 20 joules per centimeters cubed. We treat the entire volume as having been explosively fragmented, and we get this many total joules. Or we're talking high-end small-town level total joules. But what if, hypothetically, both meteors would have indeed explosively fragmented? Maybe we just didn't get to see the second meteor explosively fragment to this level purely because the first one was so light. In that hypothetical, then you could just double it, and you'd hypothetically get this many total joules, or still just very high-end small-town level total joules. So either way, it's small-town level, and yes, that's in total joules, not AP. But don't worry, I'm telling you, do not worry, because this meteor feat ain't it. If you're thinking small town level isn't gonna, you were hoping for more, this was gonna be the next huge level or something, trust me, this is not it. This is not the feat where it's, insanity. The feat you want to look at is just as iconic. It's way stronger. What you're looking at is this. Now this is a feat. And let me lay out something for you. He's chopping the tops of these mountains with just the air pressure of his Susanoo sword. That is insane. The raw distance the air pressure traveled to do such a feat too, this is it. This is the feat we need to look at. The meteors were child's play compared to what this feat shows. And I'm so glad this feat can be represented in a single scan. So right out the gate, he shows to explosively fragment both meteors and a large swath of land while simultaneously cutting the tops off of the two mountains, sending them flying with nothing more than, again, the air pressure of his sword swing. That said, when we look at the feat as a whole, we still need the Susanoo's height if we want to properly get a sense of power here. And getting the Susanoo's height was already a problem, and so as far as finding the meteor's height, so we still need the Susanoo height. Alright, yeah, we need it. You don't take the destroyed version of something as the size of the undestroyed version of something. So, due to this, I bring us back to option 2 for finding the meteor height. Just pixel scale the Susanoo via Madara to the bottom line of the gem on the forehead, then understanding the length of that gem's bottom line to find the distance between the top of the eye to the point of where the nose begins, and finally using that to find the distance of Madara to the feet of the Susanoo. You do all this, and you understand Madara's height is 179 centimeters. Again, it comes out to less than half the height of option 3 via the tree root scaling. This again makes a difference of around 7,000 centimeters or 70 meters in difference in height from the options 2 to 3. So yeah, again, we're not doing, that's why this is kind of iffy. This only serves to weaken the entire feat. However, if we are sticking with the size we found for the meteor, then what we can do is take a lowball idea of what we expect the Susanoo to be. So if the meteor is going to be this size here in centimeters, then in the same shot, we could guess with a lowball, mind you, but it's still guessing at this point, due to, again, the bad angle that the Susanoo more realistically, we could find it to be around this many centimeters then, or around this many meters high, from Madara to the feet. We can also use this to find approximations for the top of his wings, arms to feet, and other such things, but I'd like to actually go over the amazing feat now, okay? So this is all just to say, I really looked at a lot of angles to get the proper sizes while making sure that, at minimum, it's true. So after this man just blew away those two meteors, large swath of land, separating yada yada yada, what kind of power are we expecting to see here? Well, if you figure the Susanoo size and compare it to the explosions closest to you, or to the Susanoo, you can consider again that the explosions are consistent in sizes with what you'd expect with something getting further away. So we can take the closest explosion sizes to be relative to the explosions that are closer to the mountains for proper sizing, and if we do that, we get this many meters of rock being explosively fragmented without the meteors. And hey, add in those meteors and we have our grand total of this many cubic centimeters or this many cubic meters instead, explosively fragmented. And look, every bit counts as this feat highlights an air pressure feat. This leaves us with this many total joules for just the destruction without factoring in, again, the air pressure being caused, the actual cause behind of it. But wait, no, there's still more. We still have those mountaintops that went flying. Add in just the volume of the rock cut, and that's another this many total joules, leaving us at this many total joules entirely, or large town level total joules. And hold on once again. We haven't again factored in the air pressure yet. So there's still the energy of the mountains flying in the first place. Okay, so we need to add in that in before we get to the air pressure. All right, add those in the mix and we have yet an additional this many total joules, bringing our total to this many total joules. Though, again, finally, now we can address it. When we factor in that it was done via just the air pressure, the feat is instead showing around this many total joules, or high in mountain level. And this is extremely impressive to anyone who gets it. And maybe a shock to those who don't. Mountain level, like if you're asking yourself that, like, if that sounds crazy to you, I get it. So let me lay out the whole feat here for you, okay? He destroyed 2 mountains plus a bunch of land plus those meteors, and just by the air pressure. How can the total joules be mountain level? The answer is 2 separate things. First, saying he destroyed those 2 mountains there is a lie. If you're saying he destroyed those 2 mountains, you're wrong. He didn't. He cut a very small portion of the tops. Second, no matter how you slice it, the Susanoo, the meteors, and therefore by proxy, the mountains and the surroundings of the area are all decently small, no matter how you go about scaling it. These are small mountains. The distance and everything isn't as large as you might think. This is all for people who might think that this feat is like some country level thing or something. I don't know what to tell you. But no matter how you try and find the sizes of things, even if you're eyeballing it, the Susanoo is not larger than mountains. Those mountains are like comparable to the Susanoo even. The background and everything you're seeing is on a small scale. So that's all I'm trying to say there. In fact, you may have even heard before about, Naruto verse and small mountains, or like it having tinier mountains than real life or something. So while I didn't have any opinion on that specifically, after scaling it personally now, and doing so in a way that isn't the smallest means of finding, the Susanoo height, like option 2, it's simply backed that, the mountains aren't very large. Now, if you have been following the series and know the power shown time and time again as what is impressive for the series, not just taking hyperbolic statements as true and yada yada, you'll recognize the mountain level total joules as the impressive amount that it really is. That said, we do need to finish up with the actual potency, the AP. So let's finally factor in the sword's volume and find that AP. Well, we know the sizes, and the sword suggests something to the effect of this many meters cubed, or this many centimeters cubed. And with this, we find the AP to be this many joules per cubic centimeter, or small building level AP. Don't worry, this too I'll address. First, yes, this is realistic. The amount of destruction, like with any feat, is due to the volume of the attack. An attack with smaller volume will result in less destruction than an attack with larger volume, assuming equal total joules. It's just basic mathematical truth. I just gotta tell you, the sword size results in this level of AP when you factor in not just the amount destroyed, but also the size of the thing causing that destruction. It's large as hell. But secondly, this obviously scales above many other attacks, including even the infamous Chibaku Tensei, when you compare, say, Madara's Susanoo here to the 8 out of 9 tails Naruto that overpowered the Chibaku Tensei. So with scaling, we have an idea of like the minimum it could be at. It's going to be around that Chibaku Tensei level for like a minimum. And note, the Susanoo can swing over and over, time and time again with its sword. So additionally, like the Chibaku Tensei is a one and done technique with a heavy drawback. Susanoo, man, this is a lot of power that you can consistently be putting out. So, lastly, to note is that this also won't be the last feat we'll be getting from the Susanoo. We all know that the next feat's coming up beyond this with this Susanoo and everything, and they are going to be much higher from here. And so, to wrap this up, understand, no, I don't think that the Susanoo's AP, like the sword swing, is low building level. But again, we'll be looking for more. That's going to be covering the 2 feats here. And hey, I'll be seeing you in the next one. I hope you did enjoy the video. As we continue on, the series is really going to be picking up more and more with each time I come out with another video past this. So I hope to see you all there. Hope this kind of shed some light on where the series is in terms of power with this. And yeah, ciao.